The file you are about to hear has been thoroughly scrutinized by the Ethics Committee and approved by the O5 Council for release to trusted associates of the Foundation. This is SCP Unredacted. Item Number SCP-6295. Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. All books containing instances of SCP-6295 should be removed from circulation, with amnestics distributed to any readers as appropriate. Research into commonalities between anomalous manifestations and possible methods to prevent instances from appearing in newly published stories is ongoing. Description: SCP-6295 is an anomalous phenomenon associated with the Serpent's Hand that manifests as a supernatural snake of varying species appearing within a work of fiction. Multi-universal analysis has determined that the anomaly typically manifests in works of fiction in which a snake already appears, hijacking the plot and text in order to aid the Serpent's Hand. Any subject who reads a work of fiction in which the anomaly appears will invariably be approached by a member of the Serpent's Hand, hereafter 6295-A, within 72 hours of completing the work, provided that the following criteria are met. The person believes in the existence of supernatural phenomena. The person's psychological profile is such that they would not attack or otherwise show hostility to supernatural entities present within the Wanderer's library. The person is unhappy with their life and desires to change. Once approached, -A will ask the subject if they're interested in visiting the Wanderer's library. If they reply in the affirmative, the nearest door will be opened by -A, and both it and the subject will walk through the door and enter the library. Owing to the ease and frequency with which ordinary civilians could access the anomalous world if the anomaly is left uncontained, its containment is a high priority.
Addendum 6295-A. Example of SCP-6295 infected literature.
The following excerpt is provided as an example of anomalous infection. It has been examined and determined to be non-anomalous and clear of anomalous infection by researchers. Work: The Rover Boys Shipwrecked by Arthur M. Winfield, 1924. Estimated interference begins on page 189. The three rovers were alarmed, and with good reason. Such a snake at liberty on the deck of the waterlogged steam yacht would be a constant source of danger. "Are you positive you saw him, Randy?" questioned Jack. "Positive," was the ready reply. "Gee, but he was a big one, too." "Maybe we'd better warn the others," broke in Fred. "That snake may go right after Andy or Small if they happen to be down on the deck." "I'm going out, snake or no snake," came the young major. "Wait, let's get those hatchets and axes we saw back there," cried Fred, and ran back, to return a minute later with 2 axes and a fair-sized hatchet. Carrying these weapons ready for use, the 3 rover boys mounted the runway cautiously. At first, they saw nothing on the deck. Then Fred pointed excitedly to the wreckage at the bow. "There he is," he cried. "There he goes, under those boards." "What are you yelling about?" came from Andy. He and the lanky sailor were still resting on top of the cabin. "It's a big snake," answered Jack. "He got loose and just came up a runway. There are a whole lot of them down below in a big wire cage." "If we only had guns, we could take a shot at that snake," exclaimed Randy. "I'm sure we could soon blow him to pieces." "I'm going to take a shot of another kind," exclaimed Fred, and, aiming as carefully as he could, he threw the hatchet with all the force he could command. It was a light and sharp affair, and as the bright steel circled through the air, the boys saw the snake stare at the hatchet and somehow cause it to stop where it was, right in the middle of the air. It fell to the ground with a thud as the rover boy stared at the snake in shock. "I am sorry to frighten you," the snake said. "It's talking," Jack exclaimed. "What's going on?" "There is no need to be afraid. I've come to deliver a message." "What kind of message?" The boys didn't know what to think, but Randy decided he wanted to hear what the snake had to say. Your story, it's a beautiful one, but there are many like it. You're not making any sense. You will find out, if you wish. The snake's eyes glowed a bright yellow for a moment, and the air above the ship became away. From there, the 3 rover boys decided it was time to visit the library. Additional text is restricted to Level 3 researchers. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you like what you hear, follow the link in the description to patreon.com/SCP Unredacted and help support me by becoming a patron for as little as $3 a month. You can get access to production logs, merchandise, recognition, and even a part in a skip. Regardless of tier, all patrons get early access to every single episode. I don't have the talent it takes to write a skip. All I do is read. Original authors make this podcast possible, so credit to the original author. Their links in the description. Show them some love as well. Consider becoming a member of the SCP Wiki. Upvote their work and maybe write a skip of your own. Maybe I'll read it here someday. You never know if you never try. The content of this podcast and content relating to the SCP Foundation, including the SCP Foundation logo, is licensed under Creative Commons Sharealike 3.0, and all concepts originate from scpwiki.com and its authors. This recording, being derived from this content, is hereby also released under Creative Commons Sharealike 3.0.